Trying to do more complex story problems with littles sometimes is harder as we move into missing add-in. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Shannon from Strategic Intervention Solutions. I'm super excited to share with you our newest Math for Littles publication with my math problem journal. We're going to bring in word problems to integrate it for littles in a little bit more of a controlled way compared to what we've done previously in our developmental process on our blog, which we've really talked about looking at real objects in the physical world, the quantitative pictures, and then we get into something called a math work mat where we're acting out things, but we're kind of giving them a picture or a scenario. In this math journal, I'm super excited to be able to bring it into our kindergarten classrooms. It features 75 days of different problems working on part whole addition, subtraction, and missing add-in. We have two other previous videos where we model the part whole addition and part whole subtraction. The part whole missing add-in sometimes a little bit harder for our kids, but if you've been using the concrete pictorial abstract way, I think kids will be successful in this area. All of our journals, if you're familiar with us, are coded in the upper right-hand corner all the way up through 5th grade to help with what we'll eventually get into, which is called visual models for doing word problems. This one stands for PWMA, which means part whole missing add-in. So this is to help the teacher, to instruct the teacher to know that we're kind of switching gears on a different type of problem. We eventually will intermix all the different types of problems, but as students are learning, it's important to teach these beginning parts kind of in isolation until they understand it. Our story problems all feature a picture, which we have kind of an eraser sort of pictured on the left side. The picture kind of helps the child that might be struggling with using, concrete tools as sort of something that doesn't look like an eraser. Maybe they can kind of use that to help them to get into the story. It's really great to read the story problem fully to a child or a group of children and then have them repeat back certain sections as you see new pieces of information that are mathematical. So Caleb found 8 erasers in the bowl. 5 were pink and the rest were blue. How many erasers were blue? So getting that to repeat back, Caleb found 8 erasers in the bowl. The children would repeat back that sentence and we put in kind of a line or a slash, I call it, or a chunk to chunk off that information. 5 were pink and there's a chunk and the rest were blue. Now again, kids' first instincts, if you're adding that week, they're just going to add. If you're subtracting that week, they're going to grab those two numbers and subtract. This is why we've been going so careful in the first 25 days of our journal to help build the comprehension that's needed to do story problems. And so we don't want kids just to circle the number and underline the word, because in this case it doesn't necessarily really help me if I'm not understanding what's being asked. We always have something called a sentence form in all of our journals because we want kids to be able to understand what it is they're solving for. Sometimes kids get so excited with solving the problem they actually forget what the problem was even asking. So in all of our journals, kindergarten all the way through 5th grade, kids write the sentence form. Obviously in kindergarten, we're going to provide that sentence form here. So how many erasers were blue? Erasers were blue. And the means, I don't know. They can kind of put their arms out and shrug their shoulders as the answer that I'm not sure what the actual answer is. They don't have to write BLANK in that spot. I really think it's important for kids to act these out concretely, especially as you're moving in the ideas of missing add-in. And so getting the kids to kind of act out the story problem, looking at this, this part they're giving the total and they're giving you a part, but they're not telling you the other part. So you might start off by a child kind of putting out the erasers that this is in the story problem. I'm going to use, counters for mine. You don't need to be using erasers for the kids, although I know it's fun to do those things. But they have to kind of learn that this is going to be a counter that's going to represent, the 8 erasers, that we had, right? And so we know that 5 of them were pink. So being able to, obviously I was drawing, I could separate this, but some kids need to know this is the total, and I know that 5 of them were pink. It just happens to be the counters I picked out. 5 of them happen to be pink, so it's kind of perfect. But I'm putting 5 of them were pink, and the rest of them were blue. Now the question's asking how many of them were blue. So whether or not you need to kind of even have, you can have a You can have a number bond template if you wanted to for kids, talk about the total and the part and then figuring out the other part. I particularly love doing this with a buffet plate that you can put all the counters, in the top of the plate that would show the 8, then you could pull over the 5 that are pink to really get kids to understand the concept of missing add-in, which will really be an example here as we look at the number bond. So acting that out concretely helps kids to get the understanding. You can see in this problem where I've already put the chunks in as we read the story problem aloud with the different parts to it. I started off putting in 8 erasers, so I put my erasers here down as X's. Now you can notice that I've had some instruction on how to make my drawings organized, not to put 8 X's all over my quick drawing box, but to put them in a 5 group so I can quickly see that I have 5 and then 3 more. We want kids in the missing add-in to really be able to act the problem out by drawing this circle around the other part. So we have the total, and we know that 5 of them were pink. The rest, are down here to see how many we had. The rest were blue. And so what was the answer that we looked at here? We can see that we know that these 3 are what the other part is. I also modeled this here in the 10 frame where kids could, build the total if you wanted to. If you want to use it in actual 10 frame, kids could go ahead and make all of those, red. Like, you might, if you were acting it out, and then you might flip 5 of them to show the 5 that were pink, and then you have the other 3. Kids can also fill out the number bond here where they're going to put their total there in the center, and then the part that they were given, which was the 5 that were pink, and then the rest were blue. Down here, kids can also, when they're ready, get to that point of filling out the algorithm. So in this case, it just depends on how they looked at the algorithm, but the part that they're kind of, looking at is that this is how to fill this out, because we're starting with, so kids might start off with doing 8 minus 5, but is that, what we did? Maybe, but you have to get kids to kind of think about what was it, we started with. So in this case, we started with 8, and we knew that the 5 of them were going to be the pink erasers, and then the rest that were left is here. And so kids might not necessarily use subtraction to do that. They might look at the 8 and kind of look at the 3 and the 5, so they can kind of show how they're decomposing that, but they can sort of put that into their number sentence as they're looking at the other part that they don't have. So obviously these are a little bit more complicated as you look at missing add-in. We hope you enjoyed our video tutorial to help you to get these kinds of concepts going in your math program or even at home with your child. We hope that you'll visit our website at sas4teachers.org, or you can join us on any of our social media channels from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or even LinkedIn, all with the handle at SAS4Teachers.